we're recording. As everybody knows, I'm Lawrence. One of my identities is as a family doctor in Surrey, British Columbia. And I have with me Heather. Heather, would you mind introducing yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So my name is Heather Kemp. I am a purpose and confidence coach. Currently, I'm in Nova Scotia. So I moved back to Canada about a year and a half ago after living abroad for 16 years in Europe, Asia, and Africa. And I would say I matured in Europe, born and raised in Canada, and very happy to be back home.
Matured in Europe. That sounds interesting. So what do you mean by that? It's like you figured out who you were in Europe. Is that kind of what it means?
I think so. And also, I had a lot of undoing to do, this unshedding of who I wasn't, or who, my family told me I should be, and society told me who I should be. And Canada told me how a good Canadian girl should be, and then when I kind of started to shed that stuff, I started to pick up fragments of who I was, I think, through different cultures and experiences and the trials and tribulations and all the wonderful joys and the ups and downs of being a single female, kind of traveling the world and doing me. So, I'd say born and raised in Canada. And when I was about 21, I moved to Europe, and I'd say that's really where I came into my own, or at least the beginning steps of that were.
How many years did you spend in Europe?
Well, when I moved to England, 21, I had a backpack. I didn't even have a hotel booked. Just showed up. I'm like, I'm here. and I think, even then when I was 21, I had such little confidence in myself, but somehow I had such strong faith that it was all going to work out. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of, showed up with this backpack and go to the airport. I was like, I want to find somewhere to stay and somewhere close here. They ended up sending me 2 hours into town in this really dodgy part of London at the time. King's Cross, that was about 18 years ago, was pretty dodgy. So I ended up kind of calling London, England, home base for 16 years. But in between then, I moved to, Africa and Asia and did my thing, and always kind of kept coming back, kept being drawn back to London. But I can tell you from the bottom of my heart that I have checked that box and I'm good, and I'm so grateful to be back in Canada. And I never ever thought I would be. I never thought that I'd be drawn back. I thought I was going to be living in Europe for the rest of my life. So here I am.
Yeah, no, what an adventure. At 21 years old, moving to another continent, I mean, that's definitely an adventurous spirit. And to go with just a backpack and wow, and to end up staying there for almost 18 years, you said.
Well, 16. I've been back for a year and a half now. So
yeah. Wow. And you said in there you'd spent time in Africa as well, and India. Tell us about Africa.
Well, I moved to Africa when I was probably about 24-ish, around there. So young. So I was kind of looking for an escape, really. I think I just, there's something, a drive inside of me that just knew I needed to keep going. And I've lost you.
Thanks for the clapping. It's like I felt like a genie or something. And then my screen was paused. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't.
So sometimes
you'll clap again.
No, sometimes you'll lose me. But then sometimes you'll lose me. But because we're recording on the internet is the recorder, and you and I are both I'm coming from Surrey, and then you're coming from Nova Scotia, and then in the internet everything's timed up, but then from the internet to me, and then from the internet to here there might be some breaks. So
Okay.
the only time you need to clap is if if you say something that you really want to take out.
Okay.
But
Well, we're going to want to take this part out anyways. So.
it might be hilarious. Who knows? If the if the video feed pauses, yeah, you don't need to worry about that.
Okay, I just totally lost you there. I was like, maybe I should stop. But okay,
but great clapping. Yes, why not? I'll do it this time. Oh yeah, there we go. So,
so Africa.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? I just had this kind of drive to go. I just knew my heart, my soul, everything was kind of pushing me forward to travel. And maybe we'll get to that a little bit later, but or maybe we should get to that now. Should I tell you the story?
Yeah, tell me the story now.
Okay, so I was 10 years old, and I come from quite like an atheist family. There's not much spirituality, or I wasn't supported in my childhood. But it's all good. I'm here now, and that was part of the journey. But 10 years old, I sat down and I was on the floor and looking up at the TV, and I watched a documentary on the Western Sahara. And right then and there, I knew I needed to travel. I was like, I'm out of here.
Wow.
I'm out. I'm going. And then, at 18, I went to uni for a little bit, and then I ended up moving to Mexico, and then came back to Canada, and then moved to Europe, and set this intention that I was going to live in 9 countries. And I did it without much thought or without much effort. It just came so naturally and easy to me. There was just this like drive, this soul drive to explore and live and be and do. And I'd actually forgotten about this 9 country thing, what I told myself when I was about 21. And then flash forward, I'm 35. I just got out of a relationship that was really unhealthy. And I just kind of thought, all right, we actually broke up because he didn't want me to go to work abroad for the summer. And I was like, we already live in 2 different countries. Like, we already fly to each other anyways. What's the big deal? Anyways, that was the big camel, or the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was putting out there, I thought, you know what? I wouldn't mind going to Ibiza for the summer. And I wrote down a list of 10 things I wanted. I just wanted some sun. I wanted the hotel to put me up. I only wanted to teach X amount of yoga classes. I was a yoga teacher back then. Yoga classes. And I wrote this really strong list of what I wanted. And everybody I knew that was in Ibiza, and every friends of friends, nobody was getting back to me. Nobody. And I was like, what? Why isn't anybody getting back to me? No replies at all. Every door was slamming and not opening up. And I go to my knees and I was like, tell me what you want. What do you want me to do? And I swear to God, I got a real whisper in my ear, and it was like, Morocco. And I was like, what? I'm like, I'm trying to go to Ibiza. Are you not listening? I didn't ask for Morocco. I
don't even know where Ibiza is. Where is Ibiza? I can't.
It's in Spain. It's in Spain.
So you had a plan. You had just gotten out of a relationship, and you had a plan. I'm going to go to Ibiza to explore it because I've heard about it and it sounds good. And you write to your friends, and nobody's writing you back.
Yes.
And then so you get a whisper Morocco.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I'm kind of slightly dismiss it with my connection. I'm like, I have to have 3. There has to be 3 very clear signs to me that this is what I'm supposed to do. The next day or that evening, I can't remember, I went to a client's house to teach them yoga, and out of the blue, I said, oh, Heather, you should go for the summer and work at the this kite surfing place I went to last year. It's in the Western Sahara in Morocco. And I was like, what?
Oh, wow. So, and what was the time gap approximately between when you heard the whisper and somebody actually said it to you?
It was either that night or the next day.
And you're living in London at the time?
London at the time.
So like there's no common, like everybody's talking about Morocco all the time. Okay.
And then like 2 days later, it was one of the hottest days we had in London, like ever. It was off the scale. It was like 34 degrees, pretty epic for London. And I also think it was a bank holiday. And a girlfriend invited me out, and we were in the park. And then all of a sudden, she's like, "Oh, Heather, my friend's coming." She sat down and she goes, "She lives in Morocco. You should go." And I was like, and like, This is not at all. Like, I hadn't spoken about it with anybody. I hadn't mentioned it. And I was like, okay, I've got to do it. So the next day I wrote an email to the place in Morocco that my client had gone to learn how to kite surf. And I was just like, ding, 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 and sent them an email. They're like, yeah, send us your resume. I'm like, I don't have a resume. Like, as a yoga teacher, it's like, what do? I touch my toes. I know, like,
that's good. What do
do I say? You know what I mean? Like, of course, there's so much more to that. I'm not belittling yoga and that, but it's
you're a fantastic yoga trainer. Fantastic.
Thank you. So yeah, I like sent them emails. I wrote out a resume really quickly and sent it off to them. Like, you're hired. And I'm like, don't you want to talk to me or anything? They're like, no. I was like, okay. And they had and I was like, but I do have some things I want to kind of chat, because there's just some things I just want to check. So my list of like 10 things that I had.
If you need to get that, we can clap. Yeah.
No. Sorry. So the list of the 10 things I had, everything I asked you was like, yes, 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 yes.
Oh, so like it would be like typically you wouldn't expect all 10 requirements to be met, but for some reason it was all met. So this is a clear sign.
Very clear. Like, yeah. So I'm about my 4th sign now. So I'm really like, it's like, go. Right. And yeah, so I bought my ticket. I went. I bought my ticket, and then before that, I had a few weeks before I was going to the Western Sahara, and I had all these like premonitions, and I was going to see like a hypnotherapist at the time, and I was doing these kind of group-led like soul retrieval workshops, and just like, I'm a total sucker. Like, I'm so curious about all these like alternative routes, and even if they don't do anything for me, I'm just glad I tried it. And like,
just exploring. Yeah.
Exploring all these weird and wonderful things. So I had gone to this one, and I had all these like premonitions that I was going to meet somebody, and there was one like, and all these things kind of came true. Like, meeting somebody came twice, and, like, they were running on the dune, and that they like opened my heart. They're like glowing hearts, like just golden rays of like, I don't even know what to call it, but just like total positivity, like almost, it was almost like, whatever you want to call it, universal presence, an omnipresence. I don't know what it was, but it was this real loving, like, and I had this vision that this was gonna happen. And while I was there, I actually met somebody, and they invited me to go running on the dunes, and they came twice. And you know, but my ego was so like big that I was like, whatever, I'm the spiritual one. No one's going to open me up with their loving heart. I'm the spiritual loving heart one, you know, like, so.
Spiritual pride, so yeah.
I'm like so laughable now. and anyway, so I met this guy, and he did exactly that. Like, totally shifted my world, turned it right side up. And the relationship didn't work out, and he actually, we weren't compatible, and you know, I was a bit of a pushover, and it probably, again, what was like an unhealthy relationship, but it really just showed me that whole thing is like, there is like a guiding, beautiful light in all of us, even if the exterior is a bit assy. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. So wait, so you were in London, you go to this soul retrieval retreat, and then you have a premonition of what might happen in
Mm-hmm.
Morocco, and then you go to Morocco and it happens. And it's a change. It's a really transformational time for you.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, and just, because it was in the Western Sahara, there's still that politics, whether it's Morocco or Western Sahara, who knows, it depends on the day. And it was amazing that like when I was 10, I just knew that. It's like my soul knew I needed to take all these steps of living in 8 other countries before I could live in my final 9th country.
And how did that number 9 come to you when you were 21?
I honestly don't know. And it was such a fleeting thought. Like I didn't put much energy in it. It was just like, I'm going to live in 9 countries. And I just like got on with it.
It seems that you've always been really tapped into kind of what the universe is meaning. And you're ready to move according to these shifting invisible winds. These winds that are often invisible to other people. Wind isn't invisible, but you have a sail to catch the wind when others can't feel it. It seems.
That's like very nice of you to say, but I think we all have the ability, and we just that it comes in different forms and it comes in different ways and it has different stories to tell us. And it's just really a matter of fact of kind of getting out of our own way and really opening up to that and trusting it. I think we all have it. I really do. It's almost like maybe a bit like a muscle. You gotta use it. And I can 100% guarantee you that there was times where my ego totally got in the way and I was like, I'm doing this. And then life went to poop, I was like, all right.
So what does that actually mean? Ego getting in the way? It means that, does it mean like when I want to control the circumstances and I just decide to like grit my teeth, grit my fists, and then fight through, I don't know, what other people want, or what seems to be my surroundings, or what does it mean, ego getting in the way?
I should probably, you described that so wonderfully. And I think we all probably have our own different viewpoint of that. But for me, it's like ego, I could use ego and fear. I could swap them over very easily. And like, and I'm going to use the word God, but you could change that for anything you wanted to: universe, higher love, spirit, super conscious. You prefer what?
No, I've heard people say super conscious if they're trying to, they're trying to be, I'm not going to name it. I'm going to say it's the super conscious. We have the subconscious, and then we're tapping into the super conscious. Anyways, go ahead.
So whatever you want to call it, like I'm good with. And I would say God and love are I could change those words over really quickly. So It's just really choosing between fear and love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or ego and God, like they're both. To simplify it, that's how I'd say it.
Wow. So, so you're either seeking God or you're listening to fear. Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly. Or you're living in ego or fear, or you're living through your higher power, God, or love. Like what?
And you've done so much exploration. You've investigated and have firsthand lived experience in multiple different practices, spiritual practices, faith practices, cultural practices, and that, does that ring true in all the different places you've been? That's a relatively shared understanding. Is that a common denominator amongst all the spiritual cultures that you? Does it resonate with all of your life experience?
I'm not sure if I'm fully following your question. Can you say it again?
You said something relatively profound, to me at least, that in life we can either kind of listen to fear, or we can pursue our higher selves, listen to God. And listening to fear is like following ego. And our higher selves is like going towards love. So is that like, did you read that somewhere? Or like, is that just a self-discovery thing? Is that again, a download from the universe?
I wish I could say that's a download from the universe, or maybe it is. But the thing is, I've read so many books and have been to and listened to so many YouTube things, and so I got this from somewhere else, and if I think of the teacher, whoever kind of I got that from, I'd give credit to them. But
it's been a while, and but it resonates. It really does. Yeah. I love it. It resonates with me as well. So you said you have explored a lot of different things. You told us the path of when you were 10 years old and you saw the Sahara on TV, and then how 25 years later you actually get there, and it's kind of like there's the numbers are there, the experience is there, the transformation is there. Are there any regrets? Do you have any regrets for all the crazy paths that you've taken through all these different countries?
It's so funny you asked me that. I had one regret up until just a few months ago, and I was really beating myself up about it. And I was blaming for a long time. I blamed someone else, like it's your fault, and it obviously isn't, right? Like it's totally, it's no one. And then I started to blame myself for a long time. And then I just kind of woke up one morning and I was like, there's no one to blame. It just is.
Wow.
Like I take full responsibility, but have no guilt.
That's pretty freaking amazing. That is so rare to hear. I come across people every day who are just full of guilt and regret. And for you to have released that and to have radically accepted where you are, that's pretty damn special.
Well, thank you. But I think it took a lot of blaming other people. And then it took a lot of hating myself.
And then now you're done with it. Yeah.
No, I'm done.
It didn't help. So I'll just stop it.
And it was when I was like 20 years old. So it had, and this only stopped like 3 months ago. I'm turning 39 in like 10 days. So like that was a good chunk of my life where I was like pissed about it,
Wow. Okay. Thank you for being real. Thank you for being real and showing us that we can always change. We can always shift our mindset. And you can be connected to the universe and still go through trials and tribulations, because that's what life is, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you had mentioned a few times that you were in some unhealthy relationships. So what is a healthy relationship, and how can we know?
I should probably be asking you this question, because
no, this is my podcast. I'm asking you. I'm just joking. Yeah, go ahead.
But whenever I see you and your wife, you're just like, there's so, I sense that there's so much like love and understanding and room for you guys to be you. But I don't know, this is just me looking in. So I would love to hear your side on that. What makes a healthy relationship?
Okay, I will not keep it unilateral. I will respond. Gosh, what makes a healthy relationship? I think it's that understanding of healthy attachment. I think healthy attachment is key to healthy relationships. And I think an analogy that I can give about that is that is really present for me now because of going through what I am as a father in my stage at this stage in my life, is that when I have hopes about what my children will do, and there are so many hopes that you have for your children, being attached to the outcome or being attached to your dreams coming true for your child, and being able to step back and say, those are my dreams, but they're not necessarily my child's dreams. And making sure that I'm not over-identifying with my child and saying, if they fail, that's my failure. Like that, translating and projecting their circumstances, their wins or losses, their pains or joy onto myself, and realizing that they are still a part of me, but a completely separate sovereign entity. So that understanding of there's a charity there. There's a charity in allowing that other person whom I love and who I am identified with to have their whole experiences, and understanding that I am complete in myself while they are also training to be incomplete in themselves. I'm more intellectually aware of my need to be complete in myself, maybe than my child is. My child still has, children are born without boundaries. They understand the interconnectedness. They believe that things are theirs and think that things aren't theirs. They'll cry for things even though it's unrealistic that they ought to have them. Their desires are full and unbridled. And when I understand that as a parent, and I think that's my job, to kind of let my child know kind of their boundaries, try to help the child build those boundaries. And I think as a mature human, as a mature spirit, those same boundaries ought to exist between my wife and I. Even though we are linked, we have children together, we have intimacy, but we also have space. We have space, and I will not over-identify again with her successes and failures. And I have to recognize that journey that we're all on, that journey to, maybe get closer to our higher selves, get closer to our higher selves. And that those journeys, even though we are intertwined in those journeys, my wife and I, that the pace of those journeys do not have to be exactly at the same pace. So I think it's all about boundaries. I think that's what a healthy relationship has. It has a respect. It has a care. That's some of it. That's all I can verbalize at this time. There's still a big part of it here, but I haven't been able to verbalize it yet. Does that answer your question?
It did. And I really think you kind of hit the nail on the head, because I was a boundary phobe. Like when my life, like I had no boundaries. I couldn't even spell boundaries. I didn't even know boundaries is in the English dictionary. Like it was so foreign to me, this whole boundaries thing. And, but the more I have actually started to implement boundaries and I'm kind of almost backtracking here, because I think with my self-awareness, like I first had to get aware of like what my feelings were and what I needed and what I wanted to be able to start putting boundaries in place. I was so disconnected at times of my own inner self. There was times, like I said, like, yeah, I definitely had moments where I was like spot on connected and like totally in living in love. But those other times where I was living in ego and fear, it was all this like discombobulated BS, right? Of not really knowing what to tap into.
How dare you be human? Yeah.
And then, as soon as that kind of, I really worked on that self-awareness, like tuning in and checking like what's going on here. And then I could come to this place of like starting to set boundaries, because I didn't even have a clue of what my boundaries were without having time to check into those once very numb feelings.
And what do you think causes us to numb feelings, or to be blind to ourselves? Like, is it that this ego is this temptation to take credit for everything? What do you think it is?
I, I mean, I think ego is a lot part of that, but then like, where does ego really stem from? And, you know, I don't really have the answers to all of this, but
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, it's just a discussion. No pressure.
I wish I did. I'd probably be like a best-selling author on Oprah right now.
Yes, instead of Lawrence's podcast, he'd be on Oprah's for sure. Super Soul Sunday. This is instead of Super Soul Tuesday.
But where was it gonna go with that? I think also, you know, like a lot of it, even what you're speaking before, like it sounds like you've done so much work. And I know we spoke about this before. I think you said you went to like a positive parenting course. Is that right?
Yeah. Positive parenting. We're doing it online. It's out of Australia, and it's the Triple P Positive Parenting Program. Yeah, okay. It's great. Costs 85 Canadian dollars, but well worth it. And
85? No, surely it's 85. More than that.
No, it's 85.
Oh, 85? Oh,
it sounds like a commercial. Surely it's more than that. No, actually, it's $85.
Pause for advert. Yeah. What was I? But you know, just the way you described the way you're trying to raise your children and having that like the boundaries with them, and knowing that you're a separate person and not trying to put your hopes and desires for them. Like I feel as though, I mean, what a great start. But some people don't have that start. Some people have really
I'm privileged to have that space, that mental space to actually put intention around parenting. And I know that my parents included, and so many of our parents never actually weren't even aware that that's a possibility, that there is a science to parenting, or that there is a school of parenting. It didn't exist. We are just so lucky that everything is advancing kind of at the same times, and the human potential is really, really high. And for people have directed it in certain areas, and all we need to do now with the power of the internet is look for it. And so yeah, I'm really privileged, as you said, to look into parenting and to know that that's available. And when I have thoughts about what makes us have challenges with boundaries, and I've absolutely had challenges with boundaries before, and that's why this is such a present thought process, and why I'm asking about this is because I think it's been a little bit of a learning journey for me recently about this boundary stuff. I've burnt out doing healthcare, and that's a boundary issue. Me thinking that it's about me, about my ego, exacting and actualizing various outcomes in different people's lives, like I'm the puppet master of their health journeys or something. So, I mean, that is ego. And burnout in healthcare, it is seeing that I'm alone in this. There's nobody else, not a higher power, not nothing else. It's about me doing this, therefore you get this. And that linear perspective of causality is not healthy, and it doesn't lead to sustainable great experiences. It just doesn't for anybody. And so, me learning about those boundary things made me think of, my childhood, because I think I had some challenges with boundaries as well. And so I think maybe some of that ego stuff comes from what we're modeled in parenting. So maybe my parents modeled or gave me a framework, or maybe they didn't even do it, but my interpretation of what my parents were saying gave me the thought that I have to do everything like this so that I get this result, which is actually an oversimplistic reduction of actually what needs to happen. And what I need to do more is to be open to the universe, I think, to be more open to being a conduit of the superconscious of divinity, to allow divinity to do divinity's work, and to put my fear and my ego aside, just as you were talking about.
Yeah, I want to be such a blessing if we all did that. You know what I mean? Just like, there's so many of us are like fighting that, like that drive or that purpose or that calling within us. And I'm sure I'm guessing here, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you had moments during that leading up to the burnout that like it was too much, and there was something inside of you that was like,
yeah, there were times I'm an adult man, and I would go to my mom with tears in my eyes and saying, I can't do this anymore. You know, what's going on? And my mom would just be her great self, which is, and you know, my mom would be like, just listen, just be there. And then, you know, and say, what do you think needs to change? Like, she would take a coaching approach with me and allowed me to have that space and that safety to explore another area. And thank goodness, I feel like I'm doing a lot better now. And so that's one of the reasons I really love coaching. But anyways, go ahead.
Well, you are one of the, you know, nicest, most humble, caring, and thoughtful men I've ever met.
That's an honor. For someone who's been through 9 countries, that's an honor.
Yes.
Yes. Charm, you better watch this, Charm. Watch this episode right here. I was joking.
But I'm probably like totally projecting here, but you know, like how you spoke about you growing up a little bit, and like, you know, how we internalize that. It might not be about our parents' side, but it's like what we internalized, and you going through burnout, and all of these things have led you and me to this moment where we are who we are now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you've got this ability to be humble and like go to your mom as a full grown man and cry.
Yeah.
And have open conversations about this. So yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with this right now, but
what comes to mind is that pressure makes diamonds. I think that pain makes beauty for some reason. Like somewhere in there, I think there is some type of common truth that suffering makes greatness. Like somewhere in there.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's you just saying that there's an acronym FGO, and I'll just say like fudge, another fudging growth opportunity.
Oh, another fucking growth opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, FGO. No, the name of this podcast is FTS, which means fuck the silos.
Oh.
Because in healthcare, like the family doctors don't talk to the hospital, the guys in the hospital. So they're like right next to each other, but nobody talks. So then the patient has to jump between silos, and they're the only ones, and no information is being transferred, and they're really having disjointed services. And that's kind of the impetus for this podcast. So yeah, FGO fits.
Another fucking growth opportunity.
Another fucking growth opportunity. And yeah, that's a great way to look at suffering.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're also, I think many of us are so afraid of suffering, and we're afraid of things that are uncontrolled and undefined. We're afraid of taking chances. We're afraid of the pandemic, which is appropriate because I'm a health worker. But yeah, we're afraid of branching out, afraid of taking on new things, afraid of moving to another city. But
afraid of setting boundaries.
Yeah. Why though? If I set a boundary, what's the consequence? What's the fear there?
You know, I think for me, the fear of setting a boundary is I'd be rejected. I wouldn't be loved. I couldn't be a people pleaser. I was comfortable in my people pleasing state. You know, and if I don't like do what everybody else wants me to do, then I'm going to be extradited or not loved or not, you know, not seen or not heard or not whatever.
So if I say no, then I'm no longer deserving of the love that I'm getting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even at that, like, I think I had no boundaries because I didn't even think I deserved like baseline love. You know, like I was like, oh, I'll just give and give and give. And then like, maybe like for me to get a seat at the table, I'd be like, oh, I've got to like buy all the groceries, cook the dinner, entertain my guests, buy the best champagne, get the nice appetizers, make sure the house is spotless, look gorgeous, smile, make them laugh, drive them home. And I'm like, oh, I deserve a place now. Like, do you know what I mean?
Wow.
But like, there's no boundaries in that.
That sounds pretty common. I've seen some people living up to these artificial unfortunate expectations of themselves that they've taken from others, and thinking that that's what they need to do, and finding it painful and meaningless at the same time, but persisting because nothing else in society has told them or allowed them to break free of this patterning.
Yeah.
How did you break free? How do you break free of that?
So help me personally, even with like the spiritual work I've done and like shedding these things in me, but I think that was all in preparation of me going to the Western Sahara and having that like permission of the guy with the glowing heart and him opening me up to a whole new spiritual level. Is I actually I joined a 12-step program. I'm in Codependence Anonymous. And it was thanks to him and that's a whole nother story. Like after that relationship, I like got down on my knees and like, I've tried everything. I've done it all. I've done everything I can possibly think of. I surrender. Like, just tell me, like, give me something. I think he almost asked him, like, give me a step by step, like, just give me a book, throw a book at me. Like, what do I need to do? Like,
give me a book. I love that. Give me a book. Just give me a book, please. I need a book. I need help.
I need something. And and then, I think it was the next day or the following 2 days after that, I was sitting and watching, I was in the UK and not very happy with where I was in life and just knew I needed to leave London. And I knew I needed to stop teaching yoga full time. And I knew I just everything was like, you've got to make a change. And even though there were so many great points in my life and moments in history, but there was just something I knew. It was like, this has to change. And I was watching this TV show. It was like this UK thing. It's pretty much like Z list celebrities that go into therapy, and they take like 10 hours of therapy and compress them into like an hour and a half. Right? Like for an episode or something, right? So they just get all the juicy bits and put it in. And a client of mine said,
I want to watch that. I want to watch that.
I was trying to think of the name for you. I think it was like In Therapy or In Therapy With, but this must have been three, maybe 4 years ago now. And no, actually I could 2 years and 7 months probably.
Thanks for being exact. We're really into details here. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I know this because that's when I started. Like I went to my November 1st, like 2.5 years ago or whatever, so it was my first meeting. But and I saw this woman and like she's kind of a name in the UK, but Cara Katona, and most people wouldn't think me and Cara Katona were like had anything in common. I think she was like had a heroin addiction. Like, don't quote me on all this, but she like 4 kids from 4 different husbands. Her kids got taken away from her bitch. She like just like a total like her life was just like chaos, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like think Britney Spears shaving head off time, and then add some kids and some heroin. And then,
and that's her backstory. That's her backstory going through, and now she's going through therapy, and you're watching her on the show.
Exactly. And at the very end, she just kept talking about these like relationships. And at the very end of it, the therapist said, I think you're codependent. And I was like, what's that? Googled it, found a meeting like 2 days later. And I was like, it's completely brought all of the work I've done, all of like this knowing and all of this, and it just really solidified it. And it gave me 12 steps and a book. and it's completely empowered me to have boundaries and to like not numb anymore. Like I wasn't addicted to drugs or alcohol or gambling or, any of that, but I was addicted to people pleasing.
Yeah. Wow. And people just say, oh, you're such a nice person. You're awesome. So you get, oh, that's great. I got my dopamine hit. Let me continue that.
Yeah. Let me bend over backwards and pick up a phone call at 3 a.m. because you're getting a divorce from your husband for 6 months straight. Like what am I doing?
Wow.
Craziness.
So yeah, wisdom comes in all different forms, including reality TV shows. And sometimes that's the wake-up call we need. The universe finds a way to get the message to you that you need. And what an amazing thing that Codependence Anonymous exists at all. Like, just like positive parenting would not exist if shitty parenting didn't exist, and that we wouldn't know, we would need it. And well, thank goodness that you were open to that, and you actually Googled it, and you took the initiative, and you were ready to be vulnerable and to say, hey, maybe I can do something different. That's a fantastic growth mindset. And that's I wish that I could observe and hear stories of more people having these epiphany moments, these moments of, and it's so fantastic that you can share that one. And I don't think many of our listeners will know anything about Codependence Anonymous. It's an online thing. You were able to meet online.
Well, now with the whole pandemic, everybody meets online, and but of course, before this there was live meetings, and and it's just it really changed my life for the better, and I'm so grateful for it. And I just keep doing the work and keep loving myself, and it's amazing, that self-love, of how that's like, how having that self-love has changed the world around me. Like, whatever's like up in my head or in my heart or anybody's, I believe, is, I should say this the other way around, like, our outside world is a mirror of what's in our head and our heart.
Yeah.
It's a total mirror. And if like it's all going crazy outside, like, it's not right on the inside.
That's right.
And as soon as we start changing the inside and having that like mindset shift, and going from fear to love, from ego to God, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, that is, and then the outside world just starts to like magically become so much more harmonious and peaceful and fulfilling and purposeful. And like, I have so much to credit for just loving the shit out of myself. Like,
that's beautiful, and it's so awesome to hear that. And you're in your Father's house, and being in your Father's house, I can imagine that there's so much history there, and there's probably complexity to the relationship. And speak to how it might be if you didn't have some of that self-love skills at this moment.
Oh, sorry. What would it look like if I didn't have self-love skills?
Is that a fair thing to call it? Self-love skills, or awareness, or intention around self-love?
Yeah, I kind of like, you know what? I think it is a skill, actually, because everybody can learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I can attest to that. Like, like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I mean, I was voted most likely to be stepped on when I was in high school.
Really? Like, so people could see it in you at that time.
Yeah, totally.
So the people pleaser pattern was in you at the age of 13 or so.
Oh, it started way before then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you able to take a guess at why that would form in you, or is it just how you were born? Was it nature?
I could just take a stab at holding like middle child syndrome, or like, like,
who knows?
Blame it on that. But no, like,
I have to be really nice to get attention.
Yeah. But there's, the family dynamics weren't always like really healthy, and I won't go into like great details about it. But I think that is just where I found my safety, was being a people pleaser. And, my brother found his in kind of, no, this is my, like, if he hears this, like, yeah, but this is my view on it, is like,
because he loves the FTS podcast.
Yeah. He's a bit rebellious, and my sister was just kind of like super bossy. Like, we all kind of just managed to find our way of like finding our own way to be safe.
You gotta make your space, find your identity. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, the bossy one was gone, and the rebel was taken. So I was like, okay, I'll be the people pleaser. Like,
so how does the people pleaser patterning, the neural patterning in people pleasing, how does that fit with self-esteem? Is there any relationship? Does a people pleaser necessarily have low self-esteem or high self-esteem or middle self-esteem, or are they completely separate?
Well, first of all, for those listening, often I find people get like self-esteem and self-confidence mixed up.
Please help us to figure it out. Mm-hmm.
I would love your viewpoint on this too, but like self-confidence is like confidence to do something. Like my dad's super confident at fixing a car and like putting a brake, doing this, right? But like, but that's like a confident kind of aspect. And then like me, I'm really confident at like teaching yoga. I could easily go up and like speak in front of hundreds of people and be totally okay with that. Mm-hmm. So I think self-confidence is having confidence in something.
Okay. A skill, a task.
A skill, a task is something that you've like worked on, or maybe you just naturally kind of gifted at. And then self-esteem, I think is like, is more, it's just like, I here it is. I'm good at being a mechanic versus I am good.
So I'm good at being a mechanic is kind of like an intellectual awareness of your strengths. And then I am good is a value placement on ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's a self-valuing. And that's self-esteem.
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah. I think that's
I'm
good at thing. I am
that
good.
resonates with me. Yeah.
So sorry, so the question about
the question was, is there, like you said, you have to find your place within your siblings, in your family, finding your own identity. And you found yourself, you landed on people pleaser. Mm-hmm. Is there any relationship, do you think, to the people pleaser patterns and self-valuing?
Oh.
Do we value yourself less and therefore you give to try to gain, or I don't know?
Well, that's I mean, totally it. And actually, like, like me saying like I had to do everything at the kitchen table, invite my friends, drive them home to love, like that was like, I'm not worthy, so I have to give this to be able to take a seat at the table. But also, like, it doesn't make me feel good to say this, or at least it didn't at the first, but all this giving and people pleasing was just a total form of control. Like, if I do this for you, you can't leave me. If I do more, you can't leave me. If I do more, you, like, you know what I mean? Like this, and
it's like accounting. It's like, I've done this and you better remember this. And if you forget, I'm going to remind you I did this so that we have this, so that we're intertwined, so that we're.
And also you need, and you're going to need me because no one else is going to wake up at 5 a.m. and make you breakfast. And then you come home and I'll rub your feet and make you dinner and then make sure the house is perfect. And I'm also going to work my full-time job and then I'll take you out for dinner and shopping later. Like,
wow.
I'm just running stuff now.
No, when you're saying this, I see patterns that I see in some mothers and children and some fathers and sons. And I see, I've never actually put words to it, but I see that a lot. That the parents try to make themselves irreplaceable in this child's life, and therefore have kind of partially handicapped them. And when the child tries to separate, the parents try to grab them back and create some type of drama in order to keep them. And then there's this kind of like a guilting thing that happens, like, I'm suffering now because you're not caring about me. And then there's all this back and forth. Wow. So that's part of that codependence dynamic, eh?
Oh, definitely. Like it wasn't, it was hard for me to admit that because I just thought I was being the nice girl. Yeah. I'm the good girl. I'm the good,
It's self-awareness self-awareness is priceless. Like, I don't even know how it happens. I don't know how, like, you really have to like exit out of yourself and look at yourself from another perspective, How?
I do. I totally. I'm actually I'm hosting in September a another self-awareness workshop, and everybody that came really like got something out of it. I even saw their shifts within them. And
Really cool. I had no idea you were doing that. I had no idea. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm hosting another one in September because I did the other one like 2 months ago, maybe, and just like a little tester and seeing how things go. And then, of course, the world totally turned upside down. And then
did you do it online or did you do it in person? Or
I did in person. So it was just before. I think it was like just before.
Okay, right before COVID.
Yeah. But I'm glad but there is so many tools and tactics and ways to become self-aware. And actually, what's like really crazy? I don't think I'm going to have the percentage here, but supposedly like 85% of the population believes they're self-aware. And like, and it's actually like, I can't remember. I'm going to have to look it up before I host my thing in September, but it is so minimal. It's actually only like 20% of the population. I'll have to double check my facts on that, but it's like that are actually self-aware. So there's like 80% of the like just crazy to me that,
I'm surprised that somebody's actually defined what it means to be self-aware, because I'm getting a sense of what you think it means in this context, but I don't think this is commonly assessed. I don't think this is common language. I don't think it is in our culture that people talk about what the ideal self-awareness metric is. So that there's actually numbers around it is surprising, but that 15%, it resonates. Like I think that someone who's self-aware, what are the outward signs of a self-aware person? I think it's compassion. I think it's kindness. So who is actually giving sustainably, giving in a way that's sustainable? Who is actually compassionate towards themselves, loving themselves, as you mentioned earlier? Maybe 15%. So I resonate with those numbers, but I don't know who would do the studies and how you would do such a study, because it would be fantastic. And if we did the study, that would be awesome, because then we can actually make a plan to change it and improve it. And that's the improvement science in me, guy in me, that's getting excited about that.
I love all this like sciencey kind of stuff. Like there's so much value in the science. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a little more like weighted heavier to the spiritual side, but it's so nice when science backs it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And
nerd out.
There's my brother-in-law. He's studying astrophysics, and he's really interested. Sharma's brother, and he's really interested, or he spoke to me about grand unifying theory. So grand unifying theory is like the theory of everything or whatever. And there's documentaries on these concepts, and a lot of them are in the physics realm. But like us categorizing things into separate categories, like that's the spiritual and this is the scientific, that they're different is, of course, as you know, it's fictitious. It's fake. Everything is actually overlaid, right? Everything, the complexities of all these different schools of thought are actually coexisting, intermeshed, intertwined, interdependent, and actually one big thing. So I feel like the spiritual is being revealed. The spiritual plans potentially are being revealed in the sciences, or science is just putting words on things that are spiritual realities. Like that's one of the ways that I've heard it interpreted, and that resonates with me. Speaking of which, you had told me before, we were in a van, maybe on the tea kettle hike. Was it called Teapot Hill hike? Yeah. And you told me that you had actually trained in energy healing or Reiki training. Mm-hmm. And as a health practitioner and with patients who swear by it, who say that it's been really helpful for them to go to Reiki masters for therapy, I'd love to learn more about it. And you would be the first Reiki master to speak about it on here. If you feel cool about sharing stuff about that.
I'm really out of practice, and I actually don't have my master yet, so I'll just humble.
Okay, let's say yeah.
and keep it real and honest.
You've Googled it before. What have you Googled about Reiki?
But no, I have. I did take like a weekend course, and then did a lot of practicing, and went back and did some, but I'm not like master. Okay.
Thank you. You are not a master.
Mm-hmm. But I actually was thinking that just the other day. I was like, I really need to get back into it, because I've kind of got a little bit removed from it. But my first actual meditation was a bit kind of Reiki-esque, and is putting my hands or my palms facing one another, just a few inches apart in front of my heart, and just kind of feeling the energy in between my palms. And I'm quite attuned to it, so I can already kind of start to feel like they're gently cupped. My palms are just gently cupped, and I can kind of just like pulse back and forth, and I can feel like an energy. And I almost can't like squish it together anymore, because there's that like energy between my hands. So that's like the functionality of it, if you will. It's like this sit with it.
Like I feel a warmth. I feel a little bit of warmth, and I think it's because my hands are radiating my warmth towards the other hand. Like, or maybe I'm like, because the ambient air is relatively cold, and now when I go like this, it's kind of like the heat is radiating off my hand to the other hand. But that is energy. Heat is energy. It's infrared.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think there's different practitioners, and like there's everybody kind of works slightly differently, but it is just that energy. And sometimes there's the heat, and some people are way more susceptible to Reiki healing than others. Like I've done, or maybe I was off, and I'm like, oh, was he getting too much? And other people, I was like every chakra and every like orifice was like, I'm like, wow, something's really going on here. And then like you have the conversation after, and it's like, I had this, like I get that all the time. I have this, like I just like explained what came through for me and what kept kind of calling me. And I tend to, I think with my yoga, I'm quite a physical person, and doing the Reiki, I almost kind of like embody the physical thing. So like I had a woman that was doing it, and like when I was over her face, my face went bright red and it was super hot. And then it moved down to her heart, and I felt like my heart clenching in. And then I like had to go, and I told her, like, this is what came up from. She goes, I have all of that.
So it's kind of like you're able to maybe empathically kind of sense what's going on with that person, and your brain is allowing you to interpret it kind of on yourself, using your body as a mapping the other person's symptoms. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that.
Yeah. And then cool. This is how it works for me. And then of course, then you kind of do like a clearing of the energy, or realigning the energy for them. And then after the session's done, I've got to make sure that I'm good. Like I don't want to carry that's yours. Yeah. This is mine. This is where my boundaries are. Yay.
Yeah. So getting those boundaries, I think that clarity. And so do you have like kind of like a energy clearing ritual like that you would go through to clear your energies and make sure that you have your energy boundary cleared?
Well, I mean, I'm like a better sucker for like smudging, like the I'm such a hippie.
yeah. That's where you're like cedar branches or cedar leaf.
I'm more of a sage.
Sage. Sorry. Sage.
That's okay. I'm sure cedar would work.
It would crackle. I'm pretty sure it would crackle.
But no, yeah, sage. But also, if I'm not doing that, it's really just kind of shaking off. And I like brush myself off. Like I take my hands and like rub the energy off of me. And I'll even still do that if I've like been out somewhere and like someone has some road rage or something. I'm like, okay, Heather, like, I don't need that. Like,
yeah,
it could be like woo woo, but it works for me.
No, like I think we are physical and cognitive and intellectual beings, and if we need to do a physical act to finalize and to solidify a spiritual action, why not, right? And I think so much of human history and tradition has physical acts that represent our spiritual realities. So, it makes sense. And if someone is, like you said, some people are more susceptible. Susceptible is a funny word because susceptible makes it sound like it's like a disease, and you were more susceptible to Reiki and you were not. But I think, what do you think makes someone more susceptible and someone not? Or what makes some people more able to benefit from Reiki and some not able to benefit? And is Reiki Japanese, by the way? Reiki? Is that a Japanese word?
That's it. Yeah.
It is? Okay.
What was I? So first of all, I think everybody can benefit from it.
Oh.
But it depends a little. Like, everybody can benefit from meditation, right?
Yes.
But it depends how deep and how focused and how long and how many years practice you have. And there's so many equations to that, right? But everybody can, even if you just did 3 breaths and that's your meditation, then okay, that's better than so I think it's a benefit it can be beneficial to everybody. What makes someone more susceptible? That's, first of all, if someone's willing to come for a Reiki session, then there's already that kind of curiosity, right? And there's that willingness. So I think that's quite important. But I don't know. I don't really have an answer for it, but all that wants to come to the surface when we say this is their soul needs it. It's part of the stepping stone to their healing.
And it's the right time
and it's the right time
journey.
And it's just, I haven't yet figured out why somewhere. And maybe, like I said, maybe it's me. Maybe it's where the moon is in the sky. Maybe I'm just more the full moon. I don't, I haven't really looked that carefully to see what else is going on or where my energy levels are, or maybe I had a bad day and I'm not vibing it. Who knows? So I don't have it for you. Yeah.
So I think it's unfair. My question's unfair because I'm asking for pretty kind of discrete, concrete answers, concrete questions for something that's more fluid, I think. And so,
yeah, thanks.
Excuse me for that. Yeah, no, it's us trying to put labels and boxes on things that really can't be labeled and put boxes.
Yeah, and so not tangible. Yeah.
Yeah, because life is dynamic and life is energy, and energy shifts and goes. So I would like to broach the topic of kind of what we initially started on, which is the coaching stuff. Because you had mentioned that you're a confidence coach. Yeah.
Yeah. And so life purpose, confidence. Yeah, I would say I work with women. I find I have better success and a better connection, and there isn't that awkward kind of, there's a lot of energy shared and a lot of feelings and a lot of, so anyways, I usually work with women, but I'm not totally against working with guys, but that's kind of more where I go. But yeah, work with women in discovering their purpose and pursuing it with confidence.
And I'm guessing you're the first confidence coach I've met, or life purpose confidence coach that I've met, in terms who would frame themselves as that. Have you known of someone else who is a life purpose confidence coach?
I've never, I kind of, through my trials and coaching and kind of figuring out where I landed, I hadn't really heard of it before, but the more research I do, I am kind of starting to see things out there. And there's I don't know the woman name in New York, but she seems pretty awesome too. But she does life purpose and confidence, and that is totally me.
It sounds awesome. I think it sounds like something that's really well needed in right now, any time, really.
Yeah.
I wish you were around when I was still searching a little bit more, and I'm thankful that you're available now. So,
Well,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry. What were you saying?
no, I just, I feel very blessed and very honored that my life took the path it did. And, I like fulfilling my purpose is really been a driving force, I would say, throughout my entire life. Have you ever read The Alchemist?
No, I haven't, but it's been recommended to me multiple times. So it's probably almost the third time. So I should probably do it.
Okay. But and one of the things the Alchemist was like, and he asked, like, can it be a purpose? Like he was like a sheep herder or something like that, and then kind of there's all these signs and stuff. He goes, could it be someone's purpose to travel the world and like just be like, like a nomad? And he's like, of course. And I'm like, I feel as though I really was living my purpose, being like this kind of chop and change, not a normal life, not at all, like being a bit of a nomad for so many years. But I really do feel it's my purpose. And, like who knows how I shifted and changed people's lives for where I was at what time and what I said. And maybe I just had to be there on that bus at that time, or, like,
yeah. One of the side benefits to your environment being a people pleaser is that you're always giving off, hopefully, pretty positive energy, and you've left a trail around around the globe of positive giving, and it sounds like you're still on that path, but maybe more sustainably now.
Yes, and I think that's like, yeah, that's key, and I think nothing brings me more joy than seeing somebody fulfill their purpose. And it doesn't really matter what it is. If it's you being a mom, and like just a really awesome mom, that's great. If it's you like collecting stamps, it doesn't have to be it's like a vocation. It's not a job. Your purpose is like, and it could be a job, but it brings me so much joy, and nothing actually makes me sadder or more mad than like people who have, like, they're just not living it. It's like, not like you're put on this earth for a reason, and the world needs you,
It's so cool because when I think about the divine, when I think about the creator of the universe, I feel like they say the things that you just said. Like, it makes me sad when you don't recognize your awesomeness. Nothing makes me happier than seeing you in the fullness of your joy. Like those are the things that I imagine that the creator is thinking and saying. And it's awesome that you just said that. And so you are literally trying to manifest divinity within your work, which is just so freaking beautiful. That's so cool. So how do people find you? How do people, if they have questions for you, if they're interested in maybe having a coaching session or a discussion about the same, how would they find you?
Well, they can find me on like Facebook, Instagram, website. It's just Heather Lee Kemp.
Heather Lee Kemp, LeeKemp.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and .com, or just type that into Instagram or Facebook, and there I am sharing my love and my my wisdom and my slight sometimes like like I've actually created like my next post, and it's a bit actually was just kind of that, like it just makes me like so sad and mad when I like see all this potential, and like, and if only they had the confidence to take that step or make that first phone call, because I was that person. I had like no confidence, no self-esteem around a lot of things, like, and I couldn't actually like reach out to live like a fuller life. Yeah.
There's so much fear, so many things to be fearful of. Why should they take the risk? They don't believe that the benefits could be there.
And it totally does. My God, it does. It always does. It's so easy to say that, right? Like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's totally worth the risk. If you follow your love, you follow your heart, you follow your higher power, it'll be fine, right? But society's like, no, get the 9 to 5. Don't click stamps. That's like an old man thing, like, meanwhile, you're like, I just want to.
I love stamps.
Like stamps, Okay.
So funny. I do collect stamps. Actually, I do. I have an album, and the album is like an 8x11, and it has at least 10 rows at each, with kind of like a centimeter of really thin, beautiful paper, and then you slip the stamp in after you've carefully steamed it off the envelope, and then you peel it, and then when it dries, you stick it in there. I have a full book, and I will show you next time you are in town. But,
well, wonderful. That's awesome.
And because of this conversation today, I am going to go full stamp collector.
Okay. Well, that's great. I think that's brilliant. I had no idea. So wonderful.
Is there anything you would like to discuss before we close off this awesome? I've had so much fun in this conversation, Heather, and I really appreciate your time. Anything?
My cheeks hurt from smiling and laughing so much. So yeah. Yeah. No, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm so honored for your time and your energy and thinking of me and inviting me onto your show. And yeah, it's been great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll chat soon. And I thought of a meme that I'm going to send you that's going to resonate. It's one about the 9 to 5 and how crappy it is. So I encourage you on your amazing nomadic vagabond adventures, and I'm excited to hear about how you're making the world a better place.
Thank you. All right.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.